Well, folks, there's just not much else to say. There's not much else to say except this. After weeks of sitting there and asking ourselves, why don't the Jets bench Zach Wilson? It's just not working out. The obvious is now our answer. The Jets have no depth whatsoever behind Zach Wilson and, of course, Aaron Rodgers at the quarterback position. And there's one guy to blame for that. Let's go right into it. Jets losing 13-8 to the Falcons, right here on the Sports Talk Nation. So, folks, again, the Jets lose 13-8. When was the last time you saw a final score of that? 13-8. It's been a while since you see something like that, because the Jets and the Falcons took us back to football from, 1920. It wasn't 2023. It was football out of 1923. Offense that couldn't move the football at all. Penalties galore, lack of discipline, lack of focus, and all you have to do is just flip around the dial. Go on to the NFL YouTube page or go on to NFL Red Zone, and you can see teams throwing the ball all over the place around the field. Even teams like the Cardinals throwing the ball all over the ballpark, and the Jets can't move the football at all. Can't do it. Tim Boyle proved for the second straight week that he's just not up to the task, as he ends up getting benched in this game. 14 out of 28, 148 yards with the interception. The interception, a terrible throw in which he overthrew Garrett Wilson on a play, and ends up getting picked off. And then it wasn't that much better with Trevor Siemian, who, after completing his first pass, wound up 5 of 13, 66 yards, took 3 sacks, including getting strip-sacked on a fumble. That was pretty much all she wrote, as the Jet offense, again, completely stalls. I mean, look at these numbers. 14 first downs, 2 out of 15 on third down efficiency. Somehow managed to outgain the Falcons 259 to 194 because the Jet defense, again, even on an off day, the Jet defense played fairly well and well enough for any other team to come back and win that game. You give up 13 points as a defense, you should win that game. You should win that game. But not the Jets, not this year, not the way things are going. The Jets are 4-8, staring into the abyss. Who knows how much longer this is going to continue? And then you throw on top of that, because there's really not much to analyze from the game other than what I just said, that they have no depth at the quarterback position. No one to push the ball down the field. I give Siemian credit. He tried to do that a little bit towards the end of the game, but still he was ineffective. Offensive line, again, is an issue. They can't run the football. Breece Hall looks like he's lost a lot of confidence in himself right now, as he is having a tough time of it. Dalvin Cook finally got into the offense a little more, had 9 carries, 35 yards, ended up leading the Jets in rushing, but even he had a big fumble. But as I said, Breece Hall, he has just been virtually invisible, 16 yards on 13 carries today against the Falcons. That can't happen. He got bottled up. Garrett Wilson had a rough day, 3 catches, 50 yards. The 2 best players in this offense were virtually ineffective for the Jets in this game. How do you allow that to happen? It's unacceptable. It really is. Don't be shocked if the Jets go back to Zach Wilson right now. I wouldn't be shocked. Now we know why the Jets were so steadfast, why Robert Saleh and even Joe Douglas are so steadfast. We're going to stick with Zach Wilson because they had nobody there behind him. And again, that's on the general manager. How is it that you go into a season with Aaron Rodgers as your starting quarterback and you don't go out there and try to bring in a legitimate backup quarterback to be number 2 so that Zach Wilson, who you said going into the season was going to sit back, relax, learn from Aaron Rodgers, not get into any games, not have that kind of pressure put on him? And the Jets supposedly had guys come and ask for tryouts, whether it be a Carson Wentz, Nick Foles' name got thrown out there at one point during this season. You had, of course, the trade of Josh Dobbs from Arizona to Minnesota. I know Minnesota's kind of kicking themselves after what Dobbs did last week when he threw 4 picks. Oh, and there was some guy named Joe Flacco who was on this team last year. I saw that in his first drive. He completed a touchdown pass for the Cleveland Browns. A touchdown pass. You may have forgotten what that feels like for Jet fans. I don't know. So that's on Joe Douglas for not going out there and getting a legitimate backup quarterback for this team, and it's showing now. And it's been showing all season. And the Jets are mired in a 5-game losing streak. And I don't know if they're ever going to get out of this losing streak right now. And I know they got the Patriots on the schedule who are abysmal right now. And they got the Washington Commanders who are not that great either. Outside of those are the last 2 chances the Jets have a legit shot to win a game. I don't know if they're going to do it. And now the report now today, this is by Ian Rapoport. Now, this was a little bit of an exciting week. I didn't get a chance to do a video on it this week because it was just a crazy week. But Aaron Rodgers, of course, came back onto the practice field this week. The Jets at the time, as of Tuesday, had 21 days. We're approaching, 15, 14 days now until the Jets can make a so-called decision about whether to activate Rodgers from the injured reserve and continue what would have been an improbable comeback. It's improbable by the fact that he's out there practicing right now. I give Rodgers credit from the standpoint that, hey, look, this guy has a lot of tenacity. He wants to be out there. He wants to be out there for his teammates, and he wants to make this happen. That being said, putting him back on the field is incredibly risky, especially behind that offensive line and on a team that right now can't do anything right. I don't want to see him at 40 years old on the field for this team. And now here's a report today. Ian Rapoport, Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers, unlikely to play this year despite positive week returning to practice. That is the story here from Rapoport. And let me just go through here. After talking to sources throughout the week about Rodgers' situation, here's the summation where it stands. It appears unlikely that Rodgers will play in games at all this season if the Jets are eliminated from the playoff picture, which right now at 4-8 they pretty much are. Rodgers is not expected to play, according to sources. Not a surprise, but that's where it stands. New York was 4-7 at the time, and its playoff chances are now on a thread. Rodgers loosely targeted December 24th against the Commanders as a potential return date, but if the Jets are out of it, by then, don't expect a return. So he's not coming back, folks, this year. It's not surprising. If all of a sudden, and again, this is Aaron Rodgers, where the news cycle seems to change every other day, he's not going to make this medically miraculous comeback to play this year for the Jets. And that's probably the smart thing. Let's just be honest, as I just said. It's probably the smart thing, most prudent thing, that he doesn't play this year. Rest up, get that leg fully 100%, and then try to hit pay dirt in 2024 if he is indeed going to come back in 2024, as you would expect. So that leads to this question. As we sit here and watch this team flounder here over the next 5 weeks through New Year's, what is the situation going to be with everybody else? What's it going to be with Joe Douglas? What's it going to be with Robert Saleh? What's it going to be with Nathaniel Hackett? Rodgers has backed these guys. There was a report by Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic earlier in the week saying that internally the Jets are operating as a whole regime. Douglas, Saleh, and coordinator Nathaniel Hackett will be back next year. So we have to go off of that. But, of course, the rumbling has already begun. It began last week against Miami on the Black Friday when I said, okay, when we saw fans jumping online saying that it's time to move on, let's find another coach, let's blow this thing up, and people taking turns of who to blame between Saleh and Douglas. But now you have to wonder, if this continues, this losing continues, and this kind of offensive effort continues, how is it that there aren't some changes? That's the question I have. That's the question all people who are covering the Jets or are Jet fans should have. What is Woody Johnson's tolerance right now? That's going to be the question right now moving forward. Does Aaron Rodgers have enough clout to say, hey, look, don't get rid of these guys. These are my guys. We'll just hit reset. The season basically ended 4 plays into the year in September. Let's hit reset in 2024 and not blow this thing up. Does Woody Johnson have that kind of patience? Or does he want to start all over again? I think if he hits the reset button totally and starts all over again with a new GM, new coach, everything, you're going to see a very unhappy Aaron Rodgers. So that's a storyline that he may not want to deal with. So you might see those guys come back. And look, I like Saleh. I think he's a good coach. I have concerns about the way he gets this team focused at times, the lack of discipline by this team, especially defensively. The penalties are ridiculous. I know that this game was questionable as far as some of the penalties that were called, but sometimes this team gets called for 6, 7. They're almost a guarantee 6, 7 penalties a game right now. They lack discipline. So I have concerns about that. The offense, of course, led by Hackett, out when he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers around him. it just looks terrible. I mean, it's so bad. And of course, look, Joe Douglas did a great job in 2022 drafting with that draft, getting guys like Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and Jermaine Johnson. Okay, also with Sauce Gardner. He had an incredible draft that year. Incredible. Set the franchise up as far as young talent is concerned. I can't take that away from him. As far as getting the quarterback position right, he has totally failed. As far as trying to help this team get through this year after Rodgers went down, complete F. No way, no excuse about that. It's now about the tolerance of what is to come. And if this game is any indication, it's going to get rough over the next 5 weeks. It's going to get even rougher over the next 5 weeks. Hopefully for the Jets, hopefully for everybody involved, they can find a way and win a couple of games just to save face. Just to save face. 6-11, save face just a little bit. Go into the offseason with a couple more wins under your belt. And this was a game that the Jets had to have. Forget playoffs, but just from the standpoint of building confidence in themselves again. They had to have it, and they didn't get it. So that's why I wonder, are they going to go back to Zach Wilson now as their quarterback going into that game when I believe they play the Houston Texans, who took care of the Broncos today? The Texans are on fire, folks. They're really good. Do they go back to Zach Wilson? Why not? At this point, what's the difference? Aaron Rodgers isn't going to come back. I think we could move on from that, perhaps. What's the difference right now? Find a way to win a game, Jets. That's what you got to do moving forward here in 2023. Win a game and try to get some confidence going back for yourselves moving forward through the rest of this season, going into the off-season, especially if these reports that are true, that they're probably going to run it back anyway. We'll see how things play out. Like and subscribe, comment below. We'll talk to you next time.